Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to the last little lecture that I have planned for this semester. I first want to thank you all for a great semester. It's been, as I mentioned in the email I sent out, it's been really great seeing your thoughts and your perspectives and the arguments we've been making on your discussion post. Love the interviews that some of y'all provided, which was with some incredible people covering some really great topics. And I haven't graded anything yet, but I've seen that some folks have started turning in their final papers. But just wanted to go over a few last things in terms of what we've covered over the semester. And I think a good jumping off point is one of the things we covered last week. I think as you're moving through sports leadership and considering sports leadership, regardless of what level, right? Because I think anyone who jumps into the sports industry, there's this hope, right, that you end up at the professional level. I mean, even when I finished my doctoral program, before heading back into academia, I took some time off and I did some PR. And even I had some aspirations. I applied to some kind of, not front office, but jobs with the actual NFL and NFL Network, some analysis and some research, since everyone's getting into analytics. And so for a lot of folks, that's a dream. And there's some other folks where their dream is to get into the collegiate level. And I have friends who are assistant athletic directors. I have friends who have privately coached college players that were on their way to either the NBA or professional leagues in Europe. Or even there's folks who love and find success at the local level, whether it's high school, making it their way to like being the athletic director for an entire school district, or even being just a coach for a particular team, just as like not necessarily a hobby, but as like a side gig. There's folks that's what they want to get out of it. You can find positions in positions of leadership in sports through a variety of channels. But I think the discussion on disability can really help kind of put things in perspective, right? There was a lot of conversation in that chapter where they're covering the idea of making sure everyone has access, everyone can use the equipment, everyone has that accessibility. And of course, that's a tremendous conversation and a critical conversation to have when it comes to those who have disabilities. But I think in general, if your aspirations are to be a good leader within the sports industry, regardless of what level, I think that's, in my opinion, is the approach you should be taking with as many people in the community as you possibly can. I think, of course, it's an impossible goal, right, to be everything to everyone. Right. In fact, oftentimes, like I know when I talk to my PR students and we're thinking about branding and marketing, I intentionally tell them not to try to be everything to everyone. But I think when you're in a position like this, those are some of the tough questions that should guide you, right? To get you to the point where you are considering all the different audiences and stakeholders that you have, right? Whether it's fans or parents, players, actual stakeholders, depending on how big your organization is, the community, your coaching staff. I mean, you have a variety of people that are part of this kind of ecosystem, right? And it's difficult, right? You're trying to balance all these things out. And I think it's important to understand that when you're in the sports industry, you're sitting at this nexus of business and community and entertainment, right? That's a difficult position to be in. And realistically, at all levels, that's what you're doing, right? If you think about a coach, let's just think you're thinking about a high school basketball coach, right? They're concerned with winning, of course. Like priority, in order for you to keep your job, you have to be responsible for winning. But you're having to deal with the community on a whole, right? Making sure that you're making those contacts, being present when it comes to talking to parents, and then there has to be some form of entertainment. Right, like people are showing up to watch their kids play, and there's kind of this combination, depending on how your approach to coaching, of having fun but still being successful. Right, you see a lot of professional coaches, whether it's at the college level, at the pro level. I have personal friends who coach at the high school level that find that middle ground where you can do both of those things. But in terms of being in a leadership position, that's your job. Right, it should be a form of entertainment, but it should still be profitable, and you should still be considering the community that you're a part of, the stakeholders that are at play there. And when I say stakeholders, I think most people, when you think about stakeholders, you think about like a board of some kind. But the stakeholders, like I said, are fans, they're the community. It's a number of people that are involved when you're making these really tough decisions. And I think more than anything, and it's my approach when it comes to not just sports, but in all industries, right? The most important thing that you need to remember when you're in a position of leadership is that you're dealing with people, right? These can't just be numbers, right? Because I think it's particularly easy in other industries to think that to keep, for some folks, right, to lean into the fact that I can just replace you. If you quit today, I can find someone later on who's going to take your job. That gets a little more complicated when you start bringing sports into it, right? We've talked about that before. Like, you can't just find the next LeBron James. Like, even when you think about college kids, right? Kids that now are like opting out with everything that's going on with COVID. It is not that simple to just find the next 4-star recruit, right? You have to keep in mind that you're still dealing with people. That even when you're dealing with wins and losses and, attendance and marketing, that there are still people involved here. So whether you're getting into the discussion of whether players should be or should not be kneeling and what that means during the national anthem, whether you're talking about the differences in pay when you're thinking about like the WNBA or the women's U.S. national soccer team, or you're thinking about whether NCAA athletes should be getting paid for what they're doing and for their essentially their labor on the field or on the court. Regardless of what I wouldn't say regardless of what your position is, but I think it behooves you, if you're in a leadership position, to always keep in mind the fact that those are people, right? What are those identities behind what they're doing? Beyond being a coach, or beyond being a player, or beyond being in the front office, or beyond being a parent, or beyond being a booster. Regardless of what level you're on, you still have to keep in mind that these are people that go home to families that have their own identities. And you have no idea that regardless of how hard you work to get to the top of whatever industry or whatever position you are in, there might be someone who had to work twice as hard to get to the middle, right? And so it's your responsibility as a leader in sports particularly, even though you're having to juggle all of these different things, that you keep in mind the people that are involved with what you're doing. So that's the last thing I wanted to say for this semester. I hope you all enjoyed the class. I hope you all were able to take away some of this material in terms of what I think is the best approach into bringing this kind of combination of leadership and communication into the sports industry. So as I mentioned in my email, you are more than welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions beyond this, our time together in this 8-week class. I enjoyed it. Thank you all very much again. Good luck to you for the rest of these. Good luck to you all for the papers that you have coming up for this 8 weeks. Good luck to you the next 8 weeks, and good luck to you in this program.